Thank you very much, Johannes, for the invitation and for putting together this symposium, which is really great, and for the honor to have the first presentation here. And as you may have seen from the program, I will talk about blockchain-based decentralized business models, so quite a complicated term, but I will enlighten you, of course, on these terms. So first of all, some interaction. What do you see here? Is anyone familiar with this kind of device? You can also read some of the text which is here if you have good sight. Yes and no. So a part of it is a physical wallet, that's right. Absolutely. What else? What else could this be? So this is our own bank of my research group, of my chair. So you see it here, JGU or JGU-MDT, which is the Chair of Management and Digital Transformation. Actually, it's our own Bitcoin node. So we run at my chair a full Bitcoin node and also a Lightning node that allows us to work with cryptocurrencies, in this case Bitcoin. And this is one part of the decentralized business models that I want to talk about. So actually, this is one of the examples. And this is all it takes. It's a Raspberry Pi, so very easy. It's about 60 or 70 euros to get your own bank. And yeah, you have this kind of setup here for your bank. We can connect different apps here. We have our node settings. We have a web interface. We have all these things where we can do invoices, invoicing, and all connected things ourselves. And you will see this here. You can also track our transaction. It's all transparent, so there is no institution that kind of hinders us to transact with other people. And here you see our dashboard. If we, for example, have an invoice that we want to collect from you, we do this from this kind of dashboard. So all this is just for you as an illustration how this looks in practice, what I'm going to talk about in a quite abstract way right now. So you may know that Bitcoin has started in 2008, beginning from Satoshi Nakamoto's paper, Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And this has triggered a huge industry. So today we have lots of cryptocurrencies. Does anyone know how many cryptocurrencies are listed right now on the main market overview dashboard? It's about 19,000. So there are 19,000 cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin is the largest. Ethereum is the second largest. And here are just the 50 most important players. And you see that this whole cryptocurrency field has transformed from just being this one white paper in 2008, and today, just about a decade and a half more, we have like billions of dollars invested in this space, and also different industry players like infrastructure development, exchanges, data analytics, and many, many more. So for those of you who are not familiar with the technology behind this, the core idea of blockchain technology is to have a ledger, a public ledger, where you can see all transactions. And there is no institution, no central institution that controls these transactions. It's based on a protocol that is agreed upon, and everyone who joins this protocol plays by the same rules. So for our Bitcoin node that I showed you in the very beginning, we apply the same rules. And this technology enables us to conduct peer-to-peer transactions without any intermediaries, for example, banks. And what I just showed you was our own bank. How does it work? Schematically, so we have a sender, a bank, and a receiver in the normal banking way. And with the blockchain technology, that is, for example, underlying Bitcoin, we have this central ledger here in a decentralized way where there is just one protocol that you can all have a look at and analyze and then join this protocol, but there is no central intermediary. So the intermediary is kind of cut out and you just have this decentralized or distributed digital ledger. Okay, so this is the main idea here. And what has happened in the meantime? In the meantime, we have a huge industry which has formed around this idea of Bitcoin. We are right now in the co-evolutionary or growth stage, somewhere in between, where we have witnessed many, many different players coming around this technology and creating new stuff. So, as I said in the beginning, there was just this white paper and the implementation of Bitcoin in 2008. And the idea was just to enable a decentralized digital peer-to-peer cash system, solving this double spending problem. The double spending problem is the problem that you have, that you can create copies and not track whether there are many more copies that have been sent. So for example, if you send a PDF file, of course, this is just a copy of another file. It's not unique. But with the blockchain technology, with the Bitcoin, you can send unique tokens, which you can verify that they are in fact unique. And after a few years, so about 2010, 2014, there was a kind of second phase with new financial applications like Ether and many more cryptocurrencies. And over the last, I would say, 8 years approximately, we now have a huge ecosystem of finance, and also beyond this supply chain media, every industry is kind of trying to somehow make sense of the technology and apply it with more or less success. So there's been a huge hype around this. There's, I think, no real media outlet that has not covered blockchain technology and was very enthusiastic about it and created a huge hype. Yeah, the question now is there really substance behind this idea of decentralization, this peer-to-peer exchange and transaction? Or is it really just a hype and everyone who's covering it is just getting hyped up on this? Today we have 4 main clusters in the industry. So for one, we have Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, which is like the major cluster and the main application. We have non-fungible tokens, NFTs, which basically are today pictures, videos, and other kinds of files of art or of comics and all this stuff, which is kind of pegged to a token, to a digital token. So it's kind of unique, but there's also criticisms about this, and no one knows, or there is ambiguity whether it's really something unique or not. We will talk about this later on. There are decentralized applications that govern, for example, supply chain, media, and so on. For example, social media in a decentralized way. And there are also enterprise distributed ledger technologies where huge corporations try to build databases, distributed and shared databases with others. Okay, so why or how has this hype, or why do I think that this hype has created such a huge industry from this very simple idea of Bitcoin? So in my view, blockchain technology has grown because it somehow combines a lot of these desirable characteristics that meet our current thinking about the digital transformation. So in my view, one of the most important arguments here is decentralization and disintermediation. So decentralization seems to be like a very noble and fine goal, making everyone equal, having everyone as giving everyone a seat at the table, participating in decision making, disintermediating powerful institutions like banks, like nation states, like big digital players, Google, Facebook, Amazon, and so on. Who wouldn't agree that it's a good thing to have more customer sovereignty, to disintermediate these very powerful institutions, right? This kind of meets most of the, I would say, zeitgeist or current thinking about digital transformation. There's lots of criticisms that these players have grown too big, that they have a huge market share, and you somehow have to get sovereignty and governance back to the customers. Another thing is transparency. So with Bitcoin, as I showed you, you can view all the transactions that have been made. It's also quite powerful as a narrative. So who wouldn't want to have more transparency, right? So you don't know what Google is doing with your data. You have to read all the terms of and conditions of privacy if you use your iPhone. Who has read all of this? Who has understood all of this? And so on. And who wouldn't want more transparency? Security and immutability, also a great narrative today with data breaches, data leaks. You can check whether your data is available online and is sold currently. So of course, this is also something that blockchain technology would offer. And automation, smart contracts. This is a feature that allows you to automate many processes. For example, a flight insurance. So if your flight gets cancelled or if your flight is delayed, who wouldn't want an automatic handling of this? So if your flight is delayed for 1 hour, you get back 30%. If it's 2 hours, like 50%. And if it's like 3 hours, you get, I don't know, even more. So all of this automatically, and you don't have to call the hotline and talk with them and wait for them, and so on. Okay, so I believe that many of the hype of the growth and the enthusiasm for blockchain technology has its roots in these desirable characteristics, and many people project their own views on blockchain technology and hope that this will somehow solve many problems that they have. So for example, you know this tale from the elephant and the blind men, like these men are told to describe the elephant, and everyone is blind and touches only one part of the elephant. So some people say the elephant is like a trunk, or the elephant, I don't know, is like a stone or something, right? But everyone touches only a certain part of it, so no one really grasps what the elephant is about. And it's the same as with blockchain. So many people say, I want to disintermediate institutions, so I use blockchain. Other people say, I want to topple the government, so I use blockchain. Or I want more transparency, more decentralization, so I use it. And everyone, or many different actors, have interpreted blockchain technology through their own experiences and their own aspirations, without getting the entire picture and also getting the trade-offs. So in my view, much of the enthusiasm for blockchain and this decentralization narrative comes from not fully understanding the technology and the trade-offs that you have to make if you want to get decentral or disintermediated. So here are some of the concrete examples for so-called blockchain-based decentralized business models, so BDBM, blockchain-based decentralized business models. And we have new players, for example, Open Bazaar, which is a peer-to-peer marketplace where you can trade and buy things very similar to eBay, but completely decentralized. So it's running on different servers, and you can use different cryptocurrencies to buy there. The question is, why has it not gone mainstream? It has been around for, I think, 5 or 6 years now, maybe even 7 years. So if it's such a nice technology, and if it's decentral, and if it's transparent, immutable, and all these characteristics, why has it not become a more successful alternative to eBay, Amazon, and many other marketplaces, right? Or look at Steemit. It's a blockchain-based social media network. Maybe some of you know this, where you get rewarded for your posts. So on Twitter, you post something, but you only get the reward of retweets, favorites, and fame. But on Steemit, you really get cryptocurrency. So on Steemit, you post something, and the more likes you get, the more retweets you get, the more cryptocurrency you get, Steem. And this cryptocurrency can be exchanged on exchange, for example, for euros, US dollars, and so on. So you get rewarded for it. Question is, why has it not gotten traction, right? Because Steemit is a very niche phenomenon. It's kind of known to a few people, especially in Japan and in the US, but it has not seen mainstream adoption. So why is it the case? If you get rewards there. Synthetics allows you to create and trade derivatives on assets. So it's a decentralized alternative to traditional banks. Who wouldn't want to get the most out of their money and create their own derivatives, right? Being your own bank. And the same with cryptocurrencies that everyone can use now. So it's very easy to get a cryptocurrency wallet by using Coinbase and so on. But it also is not has not gotten mainstream adoption right now. We have traditional players, we have corporations that use so-called, or as I call them, blockchain-inspired distributed databases, for example, Hyperledger Fabric by IBM and Linux and so on. And also this space has been around for 7 years at least, but also not really successful. Many companies have actually discontinued their blockchain and distributed ledger technology projects because it really didn't fly. But the question is why? Why is it the case that this has not really taken off? And in research, we have lots of research. I really wondered about it. I found in October, I think, when the paper was due, there were about 4,000 papers dealing with decentralization in the context of blockchain technology. And I believe that today, I would guess that there may be 6,000, right? Covering all the different industries and finance, healthcare, everything that you can imagine is somehow in there. But again, why has it not taken off? I will come to the answer to these questions in a minute, so you can think about this, what your own opinion is. There's one important distinction that we need to make when talking about blockchain technology. So it has become a catch-all phrase, but actually there are different types, of course, of blockchain technology. So the original idea of blockchain is really the one that is highlighted here in green, the public blockchain or permissionless blockchain. So this is a blockchain technology that allows anyone to participate, to write, create entries, read and write access for everyone. So this is the original version of the Bitcoin blockchain technology underlying this, and the true decentralized version of blockchain technology. And then we have private and consortium blockchains, and these technologies are those that are used by large corporations. For example, Hyperledger would be a private or consortium kind of blockchain technology. And here the question is whether we can actually call it blockchain, because here we have no real decentralized access, but there is still always someone who governs the network. and then it becomes a very traditional distributed database, like a Cassandra database or something like that, right? Or an Apache database. Okay, but we here in this paper or in this talk, I'm really concerned, or I'm really talking about public, permissionless, real decentralized blockchain technology like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, and not about these enterprise versions. A quick overview over the research landscape. Here is a research landscape map based on the papers that I found. Here we have around 4,000 papers that I talked about. And as you can see here, decentralization is one of the most important topics, right? So here, this is a very pervasive narrative, and it connects with almost all the other topics in a very strong way. So it's kind of, yeah, one of the main major themes in the blockchain literature. So what do you think? What does decentralization really mean? We have a lot of talk about this in the literature, also in practice, and it seems to be the main selling point of blockchain, decentralization. But what does it really mean? It's not mentioned in Satoshi Nakamoto's original paper. It is only implied in his idea of creating such a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash and avoiding going through a financial institution. So this is kind of implicitly captured in his paper. But then we have Vitalik Buterin, who is the creator of Ethereum, who was inspired by blockchain, by Bitcoin, by Nakamoto's white paper, and who was the first who really brought in this narrative of decentralization. And he created this in his white paper and said, if we have this decentralized peer-to-peer cash system with Bitcoin, we could also create peer-to-peer services like decentralized file storage, having something like Dropbox or Microsoft OneDrive, but in a distributed way where you have different servers and not just one, or centralized servers by these companies. Online voting, marketplacing, or even decentralized autonomous organizations which would run on their own and be governed by an entire community without a centralized institution. And his idea was to disintermediate these huge platforms like Uber, at the time like Google and so on. And you can see this here. He says that whereas most technologies tend to automate workers on the periphery doing menial tasks, blockchains automate away the center. Instead of putting the taxi driver out of a job, blockchain puts Uber out of a job and lets the taxi drivers work with the customer directly. The question is, will or can this kind of business model really work? So if we are all in a decentralized fashion transacting things, is this really the thing that is working, or is it just a kind of utopian thought? And the problem now is that research, and we as researchers have kind of adopted this language directly from the community, especially in the case of decentralization. So when I looked in the literature, and I always wonder about that these many papers, thousands of papers that deal with blockchain, many of them just write about decentralization or drop this term, but it's never or almost never defined properly, let alone in a way that everyone agrees on. So there's considerable ambiguity and confusion around this term of decentralization that is used in the blockchain research, and it has even been suggested to drop the term altogether because it's that fuzzy. And so the goal of my paper here is to bring in more clarity on what decentralization in the blockchain context is really about. And I propose that there are actually two dimensions of decentralization that we can distinguish. So one of the two dimensions is the infrastructural distributedness. It can be either low or high, and this means that the databases and the data storage, file storage is either more or less centralized. So on one server or a centralized server, or distributed on different computers, different servers. And the other dimension is the institutional disintermediation. So the question of governance, who governs this network, and can we somehow disintermediate large, powerful institutions? And these two notions or these two meanings of decentralization are mostly mixed in the literature, in the scholarly literature, but of course also in practice, where decentralization is just used as a marketing term. And as you may have guessed, this results in a 2x2 framework with 4 archetypes of blockchain-based decentralized business models. So the one where both is high is the one that promises this kind of a huge decentralization for the customer and for developers, for everyone. And here, prominent examples would be Bitcoin, decentralized finance, where you can create your own derivatives in self-custody. Also, our Lightning node, our Bitcoin full node that I showed in the beginning, would fall in this first category. Also, decentralized autonomous organizations and decentralized marketplaces where people come together around a certain issue and work on this would also fall in this category. But then we have a totally different kind of decentralized business model, which is the archetype 2, where we have a high institutional disintermediation. So the idea is, simply said, I don't want to use euro because it's of the inflation. I don't want to use US dollars. I want to put all my assets in Bitcoin. So I'm going to buy cryptocurrency at a centralized exchange. And that's why the infrastructural distribution is low, because here in this business models here, we have these centralized exchanges like Coinbase, for example, where you have an account like in a regular bank, and all your Bitcoins are there, but still you have disintermediated a powerful institution, namely the European Central Bank, for example, or the Fed. The third archetype is where you have a high distributedness but a low disintermediation of institutions, which would be these enterprise blockchain projects that I talked about. So actually, you have the same institutions that are powerful, IBM, JP Morgan, all these banks using this, but still the idea of having a more distributed, a more equal kind of database and governance. And then the fourth archetype, where both is actually low, and one example would be the central bank digital currency, which is neither decentralized in a institutional way nor in the infrastructural way. So this typology or this framework provides us with a clearer or better language to talk about decentralized business models based on blockchain, and provides this view of what is really decentralization and what do we mean if we talk about decentralization, because these 4 business models are really different from each other and require very different shifts or very different approaches. So if we really want to have mainstream adoption, then it's clear that from the customer's view, you need a very different kind of attitude toward it, different learning and competencies and also accountabilities. If you have this type 1 business models, which is completely decentralized, customers will have a very high appreciation for decentralization. You would need very high learning and competence a curve, and also take full accountability and responsibility for all your transactions, because this means that you are completely self-sovereign, and then if you make a transaction in a wrong way, so you send all your assets to a wrong address, then it's gone and you cannot recover it, right? So for example, with our Lightning node, if we send our shares, funds away, then they're gone forever. So if we really want a mainstream adoption, and I'm not sure if this is really desirable, I think not, but if you want to be convinced by the blockchain community to go decentralized, then in my view, you will have to have first a very high appreciation for decentralization. You need to learn lots of IT competencies, and you have to really take full responsibility and accountability for your transactions. And then you will see, because I'm running out of time and Johannes is also pushing me to, to end, I will just say that for the other 3 business models, this will be lower. So if we talk about the type 2 and type 3, you will have lower bars, lower barriers for that. And we see lots of mainstream adoption for example, this type 2 here with Coinbase getting more and more customers going into cryptocurrencies. Okay, so I will conclude by saying that this paper provides a clearer, I believe, typology and definition of what decentralization is about, really showing these 2 dimensions and distinguishing between these 4 kinds of business models. And we see here then a clear trade-off between going decentralized and these 3 shifts: attitude, learning, competency, responsibility, and accountability. And this whole blockchain discourse about decentralization has mainly been led from the software and hardware developers and content creators view. So it's totally understandable why decentralization is such a huge idea, and has been seen that enthusiastically, because of course it's better to gain full control of your products if you are a creator and developer, and not being dependent on the Apple App Store and so on. But then from the customer's view and also the normal customer's view, this is a totally different story, as you have seen in these shifts. So I will conclude by saying that we need much more future research and a very clear understanding of what decentralization is about, and also whether it's actually desirable and to what extent it's desirable. So to what extent do you want to be your own bank and you want to run your own full node, as we do at our chair? Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your questions and discussion.